person who is the write-in for the Sheriff's Department declined after he accepted, so he will not be here tonight. So we'll do a little bit of a change on that. Today I want to introduce anybody who was an elected official. I'm going to start down the list. I see Benton County Commissioner Kim McDonald. Can you please stand?
Sure.
Thank you. Good. I see the Mayor of Las Animas, Scott Peterson. Please stand. Please stand.
Or
Scott.
just raise your hand.
Yeah.
Scott. Scott.
I need a lawyer.
Okay, the candidates that are going to be running, we have a CU regent who's Jack Barrington, and he is going to be running under the Democratic ticket, and he is here. There's also the chairman of the Democratic Party. We all have the Benton County. Oh, do you want to say anything? You have a few minutes.
Vote for me. I'm a jack of all trades, and I want to do the best that I can to watch over your taxpayer dollars at the University of Colorado. So that's what I'm running for. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Benton County Treasurer Kathy Brown. You guys are welcome to come up here and use this mic.
This year, in my second term. Just appreciate your vote. No major changes coming to the treasurer's office as I can foresee at this point, but everything is running smoothly. Having our tax sale 2 weeks from now, and we will be fully collected in taxes at that point, I hope.
Thank you.
County Assessor Guy Wagner is not here tonight. We have Benton County Clerk. We can get into some water.
I could. Oh, thank you so much.
Is it okay if it's tea?
It's okay. It's fine. Thank you.
We have Benton County Clerk Linda Moss. I don't see her tonight. We have Benton County Coroner Jason Nichols. Yeah, you don't get to sit down that easy.
Jason Nichols. I'm the current coroner for Benton County, and I am also running again unopposed at this time. Appreciate the vote. It's been a wonderful last 4 years. It's hard to say that and put it in words, but a lot of compassion and care and empathy that goes into this job, and I love it. So thank you guys.
I was a coroner for 1 week and 5 people dropped dead. Did I tell that story? I told my dad he is never allowed to leave town. Well, he's gone now, so don't worry about that. Okay, then we have Benton County Sheriff Jake Six. He's going to be talking later on, so we'll see him at that point. And then I have the Benton County Commissioner candidates Alan Stump and Ross Stotz. And you're going to be hearing from them too. So you want to stand up or just wave or? You know, we did not plan this blue and red and having them sit on stuff. We really didn't. I have proof on that. Yeah, I have proof on that.
And you're wearing white.
Yeah.
That's my color.
Yeah.
Blue and gold.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was reading an article about political debates and how they're trying to go by the wayside, and I think that's a shame.
Yeah.
Some candidates believe that they take a risk or reward attitudes towards the debates. There was a governor candidate out of Nebraska. He was a livestock producer and not a politician, and so he didn't believe in the political theater. He said just meeting him face to face and shaking hands was all that needed to be done. But unfortunately for him not debating was political theater. The debate is about critical thinking, it's about research, and it's about public speaking. All qualities needed in an elected official that will represent our community on our behalf. Our sustained democratic republic relies on us being informed and voting for the best candidate that will represent our community. Another reason political debates have problems is because the campaigns fight over location, format, and ground rules. I am pleased to announce that the chairman of both parties, Wick Turner, the Republican Party, and Jack Barrington of the Democratic Party, and myself, representing the VFW, sat down and set up the ground rules and the format. We agreed on 7 questions. The questions were mailed to the candidates to review and research. We will randomly choose the questions, or randomly choose who's going to open and close, which we've already done. And then we have 3 questions, and then out of the 7, and each candidate will give 3 minutes and then a 2-minute rebuttal. Each candidate will be opening and tell us a little bit about themselves, their qualifications, why they want to run. And then the other candidate who was chosen first will close. The next one, the number 2, will do the closing at the end. Timers will be at 1 minute warning, so if you see us flying a little thing, that means we have to cut it down. And then we'll ask you to stop when the timer goes off. We want a civil and fair discussion tonight. We want the audience to be respectful and quiet during speaking times. And there will be a time after the 3rd question, the 4th question will be open up to the public, and the person whose turn it is to answer that question will choose the person from the public that they want the question directed to them. Okay, does that understand that? I'll show you, whatever, we'll figure it out. So let the debate begin. And I'm the luck.
Went back to K-State, and she put me through school. Graduated, went to work for construction company, and for 2 or 3 years. And after we had 2 children, we moved out here in 1982. Ran the gun shop for about 7 years. At one point, I was invited to join the Las Animas Police Reserves. Ended up getting level 1 police officer training and certification. After the sheriff's office or the police department closed down, after a short break, I transferred everything over to the sheriff's office. And particularly during the police department times, had a lot of interesting things happen. So, like I said, wife and I have been here since 1982. Ran the gun shop, worked at the hardware store back when it was Anderson Hardware, managed it toward the end, right before they closed. Went to work out at the prison, started off there, was one of the very first of the 75 original employees, met the inmates coming off the bus in blue jeans and white shirt. Ended up spending 15 years out there, 5 years, about 4 years in security, and the rest of the time I was safety manager. Since about 2007, 2008, I've been retired and getting more and more involved in politics. Joined the Tea Party when it started up. Then just kept getting more and more involved in politics, started going to commissioner meetings, and I can honestly say that I probably attended more commissioner meetings than the current 3 commissioners combined. So I would like to think that that would give me a little bit of the knowledge that I need to work or to do that job. Hope you will hear what we have to say tonight, and I hope I can get your vote. Thank you very much.
Now we will have Ross, and he has his 3 to 5 minute opening also.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out. My name is Ross Stotz. I'm also running for County Commissioner of Bent County, District 2. So I hope you don't mind me bringing my notes. I didn't want to forget any, important details. I'm 51 years old. I've been married 19 years now to my wife, Lynette. See, I'm originally from a little town called Ovilla, south of Dallas. It's a farming community pretty similar to this, or at least it was then. It's grown out quite a bit and turned into more of a suburb of Dallas. Let's see here. I grew up, did the normal thing, K through 12th in the same school, and eventually graduated. And I eventually went to ITT, got my associate's degree in electronics, engineering, technology. Even managed to pay off my student loans. That was fun to do. After doing that for a couple of years, I decided it was time to get out and see the world, and so I enlisted in the Air Force and got to travel and figured, here's my chance to actually see it all. And I got my very first base was in Abilene, Texas, 3 hours down I-20, right down the road from my house. But I also got to see the rest of it. Got to see Germany, got to see Kuwait. I happened to be in Kuwait during 9/11. That was quite the experience. Worked in avionics for a while, cross-trained, and spent the rest of my career in communications, radios, that sort of thing. It means I can work on the radios. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm the greatest public speaker. They didn't teach us that part. In my job, I worked a lot as far as interacting with everybody from the lowest airman E1, training them, up to I worked with a few flag officers at times on policy issues. And so I'm learned to be comfortable working with people at all different stratifications and ranks and that sort of thing. Eventually, I retired in 2016 as an E6. Didn't become a senior NCO, partly because I don't sell myself well, but also I tend to be a little blunt, and it came back on me in my my annual reviews and that sort of thing. After retiring, I landed here. This is part of the reason why is because it reminded me of my hometown. It was actually very similar to Ovilla, and it was close enough to home that I could travel back to Texas and see family when I needed to. But it was far enough away that they wouldn't come and bother me. Not that I don't love them all, but I do. But I've had some various work experience here since then, because you just can't sit and be retired, especially when you retire in your mid-40s. I worked shortly for the National Resource Conservation Service, and that was quite the learning experience. It was only a 2-month stint, but what I learned in those 2 months about the agricultural issues and water issues, water laws, I learned more in all of that in those 2 months than I probably learned my whole life growing up in Ovilla. So that's one area where I hope to be of some value and service to the people here. I worked for the county, for the census for 2020 as a census field supervisor. So I was in charge of multiple people during that, and we basically covered the whole southeast corner of the state, pardon me. So I actually ended up picking up somebody else's area, so I covered everything from Baca County up to west of Otero County. During that, one of the things I definitely learned is I got to see really a good view of the life here, of how people live, particularly the rural areas. Because quite honestly, most of us don't get out that far, if we're living here in town. Now I'm running to give people a choice, because I believe that a healthy democracy requires, choices on the ballot, rather than something that runs uncontested. One thing also, the reason I'm running is I learned in the Air Force, don't gripe about it, fix it. And that's what I'm doing. My view is it's time to step up and try to fix what you can. I don't expect to work miracles, but I do expect to serve you. Thank you. We've got Fort Lyon there. We've got a program in place. How it's funded is really the biggest issue there. Most of the people, in my understanding of Fort Lyon, most of the residents there aren't necessarily veterans, or they're not all veterans. All right, so we could, ask maybe the VA take it back over, get the state to hand it back to the VA and turn it into a housing community for them. But again, I think we might run into the same problems with that as we have now with the program. Is being so rural, there's not a lot of opportunities for people even getting them back on their feet. There's no jobs necessarily for them to go to that they might be qualified for. But it would certainly at least be worth looking into trying. Beyond that, building housing, although we already have houses, rehabilitating current housing that we have. Those are a few ideas. I know being homeless in the country is tougher than being homeless in the city, for sure.
Okay. And then a rebuttal from Alan on that.
One thing I've noticed is that, or one of the things that the commissioners do is check out the purchase orders and pay and sign the checks. One thing, I hear a lot of complaints from the commissioners about how little information they get on those purchase orders. I would like to see more information so that we know whether we're getting what the taxpayers are paying for. We should make sure that whenever it's possible to put out things for bids. We should take and make sure that department heads continue to take into account the value of what they're purchasing. Not necessarily that they get the cheapest, but that they get whatever is for the most value. What's going to last a long time and not have a whole lot of downtime on it. And there's a lot of other things in the commissioner's purview that give us the opportunity to make sure that what we're spending needs to be spent. So that's what I plan to do. So.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a 2-minute rebuttal. You want me to read the question again? Or you have it? Okay. How and are you going to be fiscally responsible with Benton County taxpayers' money?
Am I going to be? Yes. How am I going to be? The same way that I'm responsible with my own money. Some number of years ago, about 15 years ago, I started keeping a spreadsheet of how all my money gets spent. I can tell you back 15 years exactly where every dollar I have spent has gone. Still on my computer, on the database. And I'm the same way with public spending. I've had to spend military money buying, tens and tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars in radio equipment, which is a nightmare unto itself. I agree with that. Alan, you definitely want to have as much detail on a purchase order system as possible. There's no such thing as too much detail in that situation, because there's always somebody who's going to come along and want to, back check that. If there's ever an audit, you wouldn't want to be able to, justify exactly where that dollar, went to. And that's what it comes down to is, can you justify your expenditures? And I believe that's, there's probably more I could say, but I don't want to start stumbling and bumbling through this. Thank you.
Now it's your question now.
Oh, no, now it's mine.
This is the next question. If there was a question of election integrity in Benton County, would you insist on a hand count with the possibility of getting rid of the election machines?
I don't think there would be a problem with the election integrity, particularly in this county. I know Linda, and I understand well enough about the Colorado ballot system, since the ballots are all serial numbered. They get mailed out to every registered voter in the state, and that's compared to the database of the people. So it's very hard to try to sneak in an extra vote or to try to change votes. As far as changing, the machinery or getting rid of it, no, I don't. I see no reason why to do that. First of all, there's nothing that says that a hand count is necessarily more accurate or more reliable than a machine count. And there's a reason why we use machines to do the work that we do today, for accuracy, for better repetition of events. I mean, we started using machinery to farm and combines to farm because it's more efficient and works better than, say, doing it by hand. And some of the old timers here, you might have, still used a scythe or something once in a while. You know what I mean? So I trust that there's enough of a backstop between the security, between the integrity of the election officials, the equipment, and the voters themselves, that the voting system, the election system, I think is fine here.
I don't know that it's so much a question of election integrity, but if the election was close enough that it demanded a recount, I would be perfectly happy to require a hand recount, particularly if it's just in one or two offices. Doesn't take that long. We used to go through and do it all by hand, and we would have the results by midnight, usually in this county, if not before. There's just, machines are wonderful things, but they rely on programming, and machines can, or if they have a computer orientation to them, they can be programmed to do some weird and spooky things. So yes, I would be more than happy to demand a hand recount, and if it becomes necessary.
This is the third question. What will you do in the next 4 years to help Benton County prosper by bringing in new revenue?
First and foremost, I'd probably work with the sheriff's office to improve their facilities, get them up to safety standards, and get a lot of the issues that are currently needing some work, get them fixed, get them put together, and then work with them to get contracts with other agencies and basically do the same thing that the prison out here does. That the first thing that we would have to do is make sure that we could reduce the liabilities involved, and we can do that again by getting them back up and running on with all their safety systems in place. Also look for small private companies who want to move out of high tax areas and bring them into this lower tax area, and make sure that we get businesses that will end up paying property tax and sales tax and improve the revenues. Those are the two main things that I see as ways to increase the revenues to Benton County.
Could you please repeat it?
Okay. What will you do in the next 4 years to help Benton County prosper by bringing in new revenue?
How to help us prosper? Let's be honest, we're a poor county here. and we've been getting poorer, and it hurts. What we need to some extent is a bit of a jump start. That means, you know, encouraging small businesses to either expand or to new ones to start, which means maybe we need to get some grants to fix the buildings or rebuild what we have, and encourage people to start small businesses here to bring people through revenue. A large part of the revenue that could be raised would be through pass-through traffic. You know, we've been getting some of that with the marijuana shops, whether you agree with them on a philosophical or legal level. They have brought in some revenue to the area. I can't speak to numbers right now. I haven't been able to see those numbers, but that's what we need, is, I think, a diversification of, you know, our tax base as much as possible. We're not in a position to be able to support a large employer to come in. Amazon's never going to open a distribution warehouse or Walmart or any of that. So that would be probably my view of it, is, you know, try to expand or, you know, grow new small businesses wherever we can. Also, I'd be curious, I don't even know if this is feasible, is the farming community itself, are there different crops possibly that can be grown that would increase the revenue in the town or not? I don't know. I'd like to ask you about that offline, you know, later on if I could. But that's some of my thoughts on it. Thank you.
I think I can, Fort Lyon, I mean, if we continue with Fort Lyon, all it's doing is putting a higher load, higher demand on our law enforcement, the court system, the ambulance service, and all of that. We need to find a way, at least to get Benton County out from under all the extra costs of it. Whether it be by just simply not renewing a contract, or Denver County tends to send about 35% of the people out there down here. Maybe there's a way to renegotiate the contract and get Denver County to come up with financing or revenues to mitigate the problems that these individuals cause. Thank you.
Since Alan was chosen to open, Ross, you're gonna close for us.
All right.
Okay, and then anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, and then Alan will close.
Anything in particular I should
Just
say
like,
for
just
my
kind
closing
of whatever
statements?
everything that's been talked about, if you want to re-clarify, if you want to summarize, that's what it's for.
What to say at this point? I think maybe getting back to the veterans question, part of what we need to do really is just reach out and make contact. Not every one of the veterans who's on hard times here is necessarily homeless. Those are separate issues. Whether you're a veteran who's struggling or a veteran who's homeless, those are different things to be dealt with in different ways. But a big part is just reaching out, make contact, make sure people know they know that they're still being thought of. Whether it's just whether it's the veterans or whether it's the elderly in general, folks who just need to be reminded, hey, we still care about you, and we know you're still here. What can we do to help? And that's just something that requires us as individuals to step up and make the effort. As far as a closing statement for me, I think you've heard pretty much everything I'm going to say at this, and answering the questions. I consider myself a pretty positive thinker. I think most problems, if not every problem, does have a solution. They can be difficult solutions sometimes, but they're there, and it just takes us to break out of the entropy and make those solutions happen. Thank you.
Like I said, following the commissioners pretty closely for the last 10 or 12 years. I'm relatively familiar with a lot of the issues that they're facing. I'm a decent researcher and can come in and figure out which way we need to go and how we can do it without raising taxes or fees. And one of the big issues, particularly with our sheriff's department, or sheriff's office right now, is that pay scale. I mean, we are paying our deputies less money than what Baca County is. We definitely need to find ways to bring up that pay and get them going. Right now, our sheriff's office is basically a training ground. They come in, they get, 6 months of FTO, and during that 6 months, they're more than likely looking for a job in a bigger department where they can start off at probably 50 grand a year, 45 to 50 grand a year. And in a lot of cases, we don't need that much money to keep them here if we can get them here. And some of them are working here for other reasons than money. And what we need to do is at least be able to get the pay scale up to where they can justify staying here. And I hope that we can accomplish that. So, thank you.
So at this time, we're going to give Jake the same kind of, he doesn't have to rebuttal anything, but we're going to ask him some questions. And then have the public get ready to say one more question at the end. And maybe if we have time, we'd have more. Anyway, at this time, I would like to introduce Sheriff Jake Six.
So first off, I'd like to thank the VFW for putting this on. I am Jake Six. I'm the Republican candidate for Benton County Sheriff. Our past term was a lot of fun. When we came into office, most of our equipment was sold. Our cars were in great shape. I think Wick can correct me if I'm wrong, but there was like 7 cars broke down in our parking lot. So we worked a lot with the county commissioners. We called them, told them we have no uniforms. They had dumped oil on a lot of our uniforms when we came into office. So we worked with them and got new uniforms, we got new cars. We came in really, really rough. There was one time I walked into the office to do my dispatch shift because we lost quite a few dispatchers, and I caught Wick sleeping on the conference room table after his 14-hour shift in dispatch. So it was a lot of fun coming in. We focused on major crime and burglary. We trained our staff as best we could in a really short time. Mainly on report writing. That was one thing we were struggling greatly on in this county, was we couldn't get a report past a judge or a DA. So we taught as much as we could and got our deputies working with the district attorney. We were able to reduce burglary, which, as you guys remember, was kind of bad. We reduced burglary by 74% in this county. It is the highest in Colorado at this point. Major assaults, we got down 87%, and our theft rate, we got down 70%. We revitalized the sheriff's posse, which greatly helped us. They came out and did patrols, and when we first came into office, a lot of people thought we had 30 cops on duty at all times. It was usually 1 cop and about 30 volunteers. So they helped greatly in actually reducing our crime and being able for the public to see cops more often. It is a small town. It's a fairly large county, but there's not a lot of population base to give us tax dollars. So we don't have an abundance of cops. So their help has been absolutely critical in what we've done. So I was raised in Big County, as most of you know. I grew up here. Went to high school here, graduated in 2010, so we're still kind of young. I'm getting up there in age. But, I went to Law Enforcement Academy in 2012. I was our top driver, which made me become a driving instructor. So now I'm the lead driving instructor for the Otero Junior College. That helps us greatly in recruiting. I see every recruit in Southeast Colorado to try and pull them into Bennett County. The undersheriff does the same thing. He teaches most of their report writing and a lot of the general classes just to show our face in the academy. And these unsponsored kids that don't have a place to go, we try and bring them into Bennett County. Moving forward with the county, we would like to attack a lot the major crimes that we're having now. We're getting a very big influx in vehicle thefts. Not like the Pueblo where they're throwing off trying to sell them. We're getting mostly the vehicle thefts that somebody's stealing, taking out in the middle of nowhere, and dumping, and we're catching it usually the same day. Most of our cars, actually all of our cars so far that have been stolen, we recovered. The other thing we're really focused on is sexual assault. For some reason, Bennett County, we're one of the highest for sexual assault. So that's something we're not the highest in the state, but high per capita. But it's something we're looking on, trying to help families and working with DSS to try and stop some of these calls that we're getting. We've already worked to improve our transparency. Over the years, we were trying to find people that could release a press release onto Facebook regularly. We did it when we first started, and we got really busy and stopped doing it. So finally, I talked my wife, who helps with English teaching, into writing that for us and putting it on Facebook to assist our transparency and let you guys know kind of what we do. So as for my qualifications, I've been in law enforcement, as I said, for about 10 years. I've led the Kiowa County Sheriff's Office as the undersheriff when I was there. I spent 3 years as an undersheriff, 2 years as a sergeant, and I was a deputy for about a year and a half. Then here, I've been here for 4 years, and I'd like another 4. That's all I have for a start.
Okay, thank you. Requirements of the sheriff's office, and how are you planning to uphold them, like the jail and being the fire marshal for the unincorporated part of the county?
Okay, so first and foremost, my primary responsibility and duty is to uphold the Constitution of the United States and protect your constitutional rights. So that is our main focus, is making sure none of the deputies violate anyone's constitutional rights and making sure nobody else does the same to you. Then we have the standards, we preserve the peace in the county. We run a jail and transport services. As Alan said, our jail is kind of in disrepair. It has been since we took office. But for that statutory requirement, we were able to add approximately 30 beds to the jail so we could sell those beds out to other counties. So we have about 18 jail staff. I think we've reduced down to 16 just to get, or 14, just to try and get pays up. We've reduced staff substantially. But that money all came from the jail. We cost the same as the former administration. We have double the staff. Mainly, we brought in a lot more revenue. I mean, the commissioners greatly helped us. They allowed us, Kim actually went and got us the beds from Fort Lyon that they donated to the sheriff's office so we could do this upfit on the jail for really low cost. So we are working with them currently to increase cost of the jail. We're one of the cheapest places to house people, but we're now one of the only places to house people. So if we can sell when we sell these beds, everybody right now needs beds. If we can get them sold, it will bring a lot more money into the county. But first and foremost, we need staff, which we're working with the county commissioners to get. So the other one is I am the fire marshal for Bennett County. I'm on the fire department, but I don't fight fire as the sheriff's office. We have a great working relationship with the fire departments, both on our east end and here, the sheriff's office. We do not manage a fire truck. If those of you have seen fires in Otero County, the Otero County Sheriff, he has his own fire truck and fights fire, which is one of my responsibilities in unincorporated parts of the county. I'm not as comfortable fighting fire and leading fire as I should be. So the 2 fire departments greatly help us, and we call them and we just pay for it. We also do paper service, search and rescues, concealed weapons, permits. Our search and rescue team, we have a large mounted posse ran by Dusty Nichols. So the mounted posse that we help on search and rescue is just about everywhere and up throughout the state.
Okay.
I hit my time.
Okay. Another question. This is the second one? No, third one. Second one?
Just go down the list.
Do you have experience managing an office budget, and how are you going to work within Benton County tax base and the Benton County commissioners? Pretty much what you're doing.
So at times, me and the commissioners, and Kim can attest to this, have had a very contentious relationship. I'm working with the county tax base as best we can to function. Like Alan said, we need to find a way to start paying these deputies more, which we've done over the past by cutting and cutting and cutting more and more of our slots, which is making us heavily rely on the posse who we don't have to pay to keep crime down. We are working with the county to increase the price of admission into the jail to where we can start making money. Under Sheriff Turner worked for about 3 to 4 months trying to get the 911 tax up to date, and that's brought in another $150,000 in tax money to dispatch. So we try and do everything we can to help offset the cost of the sheriff's office to assist the commissioners and use as little of your tax dollars as physically possible. We are one of the largest agencies in Southeast Colorado because we're combined with the city limits of Las Animas. We are still one of the cheapest by far. Otero County costs a little over $1 million more than us, and they don't have as big of a jail or as big of a patrol. We are going to be working with the city of Las Animas to increase the amount of money they're paying for law enforcement. They're currently paying $390,000, which our contract is to cover approximately 5 staff, which gives us, if we work them on 12s, it gives us 24-hour coverage plus a supervisor. We're never fully staffed, and we need to increase pays. So we're asking the county commissioners to look into 6 deputies from them and 1 supervisor at our current pay rate, not the pay rate from 2012. So that is something we're really working on with them to get fixed. I believe I'm hitting my time.
Okay. What do you see as the biggest problem involving law enforcement in Benton County, and how will you change that?
Ooh. So the biggest problem is not something I can change. Our biggest problem is going to be the methadone and Suboxone distribution that we have to do. By state law, so please look at who you're voting for state legislators. By state law, when you come into jail, if you tell me you have an addiction to an opioid, we have to then, the taxpayers pay for the issuance of Suboxone or methadone. Either one of those 2 drugs. We pay for that, we have to issue it, and what makes it better is when you leave the facility, I give you a 30-day prescription for it and 2 vials of methadone. That's going to cost, on average, $400 an inmate that we're going to be paying for. We have looked into if we cannot do this. They basically put it to where we could be sued really easily by the inmate if we don't do this. So it's either do this and spend our tax money, or lose our money via lawsuit. So in efforts of protecting the county, we did work with one of our grant services called JBBS. We worked with them to get this, make sure this was paid for not by you. Well, it's by your state tax dollars, so that makes it better. So paid by your state tax dollars instead of your local tax dollars. So I just picked a different pocket to take your money from.
I would like to expand on that. I mean, how are you testing people if they are a methadone? You're taking by their word, and if you are taking it by their word, what happens if somebody ODs? Is the county responsible?
So on that specifically, when we issue out the meds, we have to get QMAP certified on all of our jailers so they know when they can issue the medications to try and keep them from overdosing. So those of you who've worked in a prison, we give you the 1 pill that keeps you from overdosing, and we check your mouth to make sure that you actually swallowed the pill. I'm sorry, what's the second part?
Well, I said, so if somebody has a reaction to those drugs that you are by law supposed to give because you don't have a medical license, how is that going to come back on the county if somebody dies from taking that drug that's been legislated that you have to take it?
So y'all know the state government. They planned well in ahead before giving me a law I had to follow. So I don't know. Ultimately, it's just like every other law that they jam down our throats. is we're going to do our best with it, and hopefully the county is covered from a lawsuit from what way they're making us do.
Another amendment to that one. So if the county commissioners, would they be able to send a letter to the state legislator saying, we ain't doing this?
It's possible that they could do that. In the law, they wrote that the inmate, if they requested it and did not get it, can sue us directly. So, I mean, that's something I'll work with the county commissioners to see if there's a way around it, but the state legislation is they love law enforcement, so they'd like to make our job as easy as possible. So it'd be really hard for Little Bend County to find a loophole, I'm sure.
Okay, this is the time for anybody from the audience that would like to ask him a question. Or did I answer?
Go ahead.
What would you say your biggest downfall is, and how do you look at trying to fix it?
So my biggest downfall personally, that's what you're asking? Yeah. My biggest downfall personally is trying to work with the public and keep the officers happy. After the deputies work at 12, they yell at somebody. They were, tired, and they didn't treat a person like I would have treated them when I was there. It's balancing that with talking to that public and not trying to insult the deputy or the public member, and that's something I've been struggling with and working on greatly throughout this last term is the amount of complaints. Not everybody loves law enforcement, and being able to field those complaints, not thinking as a cop. The way I was taught is I think like a cop. It's hard now to even have a conversation with somebody without talking about law enforcement. It's basically what I know, and it's all I know. So to fix that, I've been working on, I make friends outside of law enforcement, so I'm able to talk to you and tell you without speaking in law enforcement. I'm able to tell you why the deputy did what he did, not to make an excuse for him, but this is why he did what he did, and this is how I'm going to do to fix that specific problem. Do we have more time? You want me?
Any other questions? We got 1 more minute.
Go ahead.
I'm just curious about the trucks. So they just joyride, mess around with them, and then leave them somewhere?
So far, yes.
That's not even making much sense.
No, the last one we had stolen from town, it was driven down a roller coaster road and parked, and they even left their stuff with it. No names or anything on the stuff they left, but they left like their belongings wherever the thief is. So we now have that in found property. So if anybody would like to claim that stuff, they've been mostly taking cars with keys in them. So take your keys out of the car, lock the doors. Go ahead.
What about drug and narcotic abuse in the county, and is there fentanyl already here?
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
So drugs specifically are going to get harder as we go. I mean, I can tell you I'm going to clean up drugs, but with this state, that'd be an unrealistic statement for me to make. Currently, it's a petty offense. If any one of you want to shoot up heroin right in front of me, it's a petty offense. I can write you a ticket for it, and that's about it. As the state progresses in their wonderful drug laws, I can see in the next 4 years me being able to stand up and tell you that I have nothing to do with drugs if they continue with what they're doing. I'm hoping we can do something to change legislation back to at least it's illegal to do it in front of me. Then specifically on fentanyl's still illegal. We did find some in an alley. The worst is coming right now. The place with the worst is Pueblo and Trinidad. We're trying to keep it out of Bent County, but it's a drug that's coming in, and they've tied our hands on every other drug that it's hard to combat one without combating the rest, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Jake, I forgot to introduce Lynette Wolf, who is also another elected official from Ward 2 in Las Animas. It's right in the back. And I want to thank her for providing the PA system and everything. I want to thank you for attending. We had a great group here. As you can see, there's a lot of people that need to be educated in what's going on in our community. And you know what? When us three sat together, we're all alike. We're all alike. It starts at the local level. We have to be kind to each other, we have to communicate, and we're doing it for one purpose, and that's for our great country. Because these veterans sacrificed their lives for freedom, and it's not free. So today, I want you to make sure that you vote. Ballots have already been sent out. According to WIC 5 minutes ago, 270,000 people have voted statewide. 79,800 Republicans 89,600 Democrats, and 100,000 unaffiliated. Okay? This is my first year getting involved in politics, and I was chosen as a delegate, which was an act of God, and we were 100% delegate participation at the Colorado convention. The alternates were sitting on the sides. There was a lot of hungry people. I probably would say about 70% or more were newbies. So there's a lot of people that are not happy with some of the things that are happening, but we need to get involved in the local level, and we need to help each other, okay? There are 2,700 people registered voters in Benton County. The primary election, only 1,046 people voted. That's less than half. To me, that's unacceptable. I believe that voting is a privilege. It's a civil duty. I have a sister-in-law. She's been trying for 5 or 6 years to become nationalized. And she became nationalized out of Norway. And she is so excited this is going to be her second election. And I think, that as U.S. citizens, we take that in advantage. We don't look at what we have in our hands. And then I think it's a civil duty that as U.S. citizens vote. We just had our Secretary of State send out 30,000 illegal alien registered votes. So, I mean, we gotta wake up, people, okay? And I think it's our responsibility. It was an accident. Yeah, that's what she said, it was an accident. And so when people ask me political questions, the first thing I ask them is, did you vote? And if they said no, I said, you lost your opinion. Your opinion is gone, okay? So, because I want you to remember that if you do not vote, in reality, you have voted. You voted to give up your right to expression. Remember that. Every election is determined by those that participate. They show up and they vote. Get involved, research, ask questions. Make your ballot count. I know there's a lot of people that have already voted. I wanted to hear these guys tonight. These are the guys who are going to represent our community. We have to get out and we have to explore what they're saying. So I challenge each one of you to get out and vote, because even a good citizen can elect bad candidates when you don't vote. Remember that, okay? Tomorrow night, if you want to meet Senator Buck, he will be in the Lamar Community Building at 6:30 tomorrow night in Lamar as a meet and greet. There's another chance to meet another representative of the state of Colorado. I know there's a lot of people that have voted, but if you haven't voted, haven't made your decisions, please get out and ask. And these guys are going to stay around for a little longer, I hope. If you have questions to talk to them personally, please do so. And I want to thank you again for coming. I tried to keep it in under an hour, so I think pretty good.